Hello, everybody. It's Philip Lee returning with another episode of Civil War Chat. Today is the 3rd of June, 2021. It's a Thursday, and today's topic is false Northern indignation over Southern secession. Before I get into that, I want to just make a couple of points. Number one, to subscribe to this podcast, please click on the subscribe button below and on the notification bell in the upper right. Additionally, I want to point out that a Washington and Lee alumni group is going to have a representative on the Tucker Carlson show tomorrow night, Friday, June the 4th, starting at 8 o'clock in the evening, Eastern time. And his name, the representative's name will be Gerald Giblin. He is on the board of directors of the Generals Redoubt, which is an alumni group trying to retain the traditions of the Washington and Lee University. Okay, so with that, let me pull up my notes and get into my talk on false Northern indignation over Southern secession. During December 1860 and January 1861, when the 7 pre-Sumter cotton states were passing their secession ordinances, at least 10 northern states passed joint legislative resolutions explaining their objections to secession. Now, those reactions are summarized in my, quote, Northern response to Southern secession, close quote, post at civilwarchat.wordpress.com. And that post is dated September 22nd, 2019. So just go to Civil War Chat, Philip Lee, just Google that, and then look for the September 22nd, 2019 post if you want to see all the background on that. Okay, but the point is, none of those 10 northern states that had those joint resolutions objecting to Southern secession had any desire to end slavery. Not one of them said they wanted to end slavery. Instead, they mostly fulminated against secession and angrily labeled secessionists as traitors. Yeah, they were angry about that. A lot of bad words and a lot of derogatory comments about Southerners that supported secession. But when you get down to it, the most concrete reason they commonly provided for wanting to preserve the Union was to sustain American prosperity. Now, they perceived, for a variety of reasons, that their own prosperity depended upon maintaining the Union. To heck with the South. They didn't care. They wanted their own prosperity maintained. Thus, they undeniably saw disunion as a threat to their economic future. In truth, secession was a remedy that geographically isolated political minorities in the United States repeatedly considered from the founding of the Republic in 1789 to the 1861 Southern secession. As a result, it tended to find favor within those regions that were out of power in Washington. In 1804, for example, Massachusetts threatened to secede over the Louisiana Purchase. The Bay State legislature adopted a resolution stating that the annexation, quote, formed a new confederacy to which the states united by the former are not bound to adhere, close quote. 35 years later, in 1839, ex-President John Quincy Adams from Massachusetts made a speech in which he said, quote, "If the day should ever come when the affections of the people of these United States shall be alienated from each other, far better will it be for the people of the disunited states to part in friendship than to be held by constraint." 3 years later, in 1842, he presented a petition to Congress from a Massachusetts town requesting that the Union be dissolved. In response to criticisms on the floor of the House to the petition, Adams responded, quote, "I hold that it is no perjury, no high treason, but the exercise of a sacred right to offer such a petition," close quote. Opponents attempted to censure the ex-president, but their motion was tabled after 2 weeks of Adams's spirited arguments in support of the petition for disunion, dissolving the Union, or for secession. 2 years later, in 1844, the Massachusetts legislature passed a series of resolutions threatening to secede over Texas annexation. The second resolution read, quote, that the project of the annexation of Texas, unless arrested on the threshold, may drive these United States into a dissolution of the Union, close quote. A year later, in 1845, the Massachusetts legislature resolved that the state, quote, has never delegated the power to admit into the Union states or territories beyond the original states and territories belonging to the Union at the adoption of the Constitution in 1789, when there were 13 states. 13. That's all that they were willing to admit into the Union, those that were admitted in 1789. Even during the 1860-61 secession crisis, many Northern newspapers and political leaders recommended acquiescence to Southern secession. The day after Lincoln's election was assured, on November 8, 1860, Horace Greeley's New York Tribune wrote, quote, if the Cotton States become satisfied that they can do better out of the Union than in it, we insist on letting them go in peace, close quote. Greeley continued to opine in this manner even after the Cotton States formed their provisional government in February 1861. On February 23, 1861, he wrote, quote, we have repeatedly said and once more insist that that governments derive their just powers from the consent of the governed, and that if the slave states choose to form an independent nation, they have a clear moral right to do so, close quote. Reflecting upon Greeley's persistent support of Southern secession during that crucial winter of 1860-61, James Buchanan, who was president during most of that period, most of that winter, James Buchanan was the president, not Lincoln. Quote, this is what he said, quote, in a similar spirit to Horace Greeley, leading Republicans everywhere scornfully exclaim, quote, let them go. We can do better, quote, let them go, quote, we can do better without them, quote, let the Union slide, quote, and other language of the same import. Ohio lawyer and future Republican President Rutherford Hayes, for example, wrote in his diary on January 4th, 1861, quote, the 20 free states alone will make a glorious nation, scarcely inferior in real power to the 33 states we had on the 1st of November, which was before Lincoln was elected, close quote. Decades after the war, General Horatio King even recalled that Lincoln's future war secretary, Edwin Stanton, said during that crucial winter, quote, oh, I would let the South go. They will be clamoring to get back in 3 years, close quote. King was at that time a law student. Okay, I think that really kind of summarizes what I want to say about that, but let me bring up something I'd like to share with you here. My book, Causes of the Civil War. What we've talked about is the reaction that the northern states had to the Southern secession. And by the way, all of those that I cited, the 10 states that I cited, none of them were border states. They were all states that were so-called free states. And what you can see is that none of them said they wanted to to abandon slavery in the South. And their principal goal was to keep the Union together for their own economic purposes. It had nothing to do with what was good for the slaves or what was good for the South, but it was their own economic prosperity that they wanted to protect by keeping the Union intact. You'll get this in Causes of the Civil War by Philip Lee, my book that came out last October. So if you'd like to get it at Barnes & Noble or Amazon, it's $22. Just go there and buy it, and they'll ship it to you, whatever. If you'd like an autographed copy, you can get it from me. Just email me, Phil, P-H-I-L _Lee, L-E-I-G-H @me.com. I will sell it to you for $25 and cover the shipping at my expense here in the United States, if that's what you want to do. Okay, that's our show for today, and thanks for watching.